Good afternoon. At 12 o'clock, I'm Raphael Young with your Chicagoland SportsRadio.com update, brought to you by the Illinois Media School. For more information on careers in broadcasting, go to beonair.com. Jordan Howard ran for 138 yards and 23 carries, including a game-winning 19-yard touchdown run in overtime, as the Chicago Bears defeated the Pittsburgh Steelers 23-17 for the first win of the season. Jose Quintana pitched a three-hit shutout and struck out 10 as the Chicago Cubs defeated the Milwaukee Brewers 5-0, taking 3 of 4 against them. Quintana is 7-3 since being acquired from the White Sox and 11-11 this season. Lucas Giolito pitched 7 strong innings, and Avisail Garcia drove in 3 runs with his 18th homer and a double to lead the Chicago White Sox past the fading Kansas City Royals 8-1 on yesterday. This update is also brought to you by IIT Men's Soccer. The next home game broadcast will be September 29th when they take on Robert Morris at 7 p.m. For tickets, visit IllinoisTechAthletics.com. I'm Raphael Young, and you're listening to Chicagoland Sports Radio. It's not just sports, it's a way of life. Good afternoon. This is the Raphael Young Show on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com, where it's not just sports, it's a way of life. My name is Raphael Young, and right now, on today's show, I'm going to talk about the Cubs coming through when it mattered most again, as well as the White Sox playing the spoiler for teams in the playoffs, and remembering a former Major League pitcher who passed away on this day 1 year ago today. But first, I'm going to talk about the Chicago Bears finally getting their first win. And before I talk about that, I want to give an anniversary shout out to my cousin Angela and Ken Brooks. They celebrating 1 year of their wedding anniversary. So congrats to them and wish them many more years of marital bliss. But right now, we're going to talk about the Chicago Bears coming through. Now, of course, this game was kind of scary. And I tell you, it is, it's very scary because you would have thought that in the second quarter had that blocked field goal and returned it it should have been a touchdown, but unfortunately he decided to walk into the end zone and the bad happened. I mean, it's a good thing that it wasn't a turnover, but that should not have happened. But nonetheless, hey, it's a good thing that the Bears did get the win, but plays like that should not be happening in the NFL. But nonetheless, the man of the game was none other than Chicago Bears running back Jordan Howard. Now, this was the Jordan Howard So, let's look at the stats. Jordan Howard ran 23 times for 138 yards. That's a 6 yards per carry average. And ran for 2 touchdowns, including the game winner in overtime. Well, 23 carries in that game was more than the carries that he had in the first 2 combined. And that's the thing about it. Got to have a balanced attack, even though the passing game was horrendous. I mean, Mike landed 15 of 22 for 101 yards and a 4.6 yards per catch. No, that's not going to get it done. Even though he was only sacked twice with a 74.2 quarterback rating. It's not going to get it done. But thankfully, the running game came along, and Tariq Cohen also came through when it mattered most, even though there were speculations saying that he did not step out of bounds at the 39-yard line. But the point of the matter is, it was still a good run nonetheless. Now, it was indisputable evidence that if he actually stepped out of bounds or not. But nonetheless, you have to really say that, hey, that was a good run, which actually set up for Jordan Howard's game-winning touchdown run in overtime against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And in addition to that, Tariq Cohen, who was the second running back, actually had more rushing yards than the entire Pittsburgh Steelers running team combined. Because Le'Veon Bell had 15 carries for 61 yards. A 4.1, it's not bad. Could have had more rushing attempts, but they was trying to get the passing game going. But apparently it just was not enough. But anyways, Jordan Howard was also not that bad on the receiving end either. He actually had more catches than any other receivers for the Bears. And he had 5 receptions for only 26 yards. But nonetheless, he was everywhere. I mean, he was everywhere. And, if you look at it, like I said, the Bears got to get, and I'm glad that they got their running game going, because that's something that they need. Because they can't be one-dimensional. And Mike Glennon so far has been mediocre at best. I mean, in game 1 against the Atlanta Falcons, he wasn't bad. He could have been better, but he wasn't that bad. But against Tampa Bay, he was horrible. And now against Pittsburgh, he was pretty much a non-factor. So right now, will putting in Mitch Trubisky solve their passing woes? That remains a mystery. But nonetheless, I mean, it's not that the Bears don't have what it takes to make it to the top. But right now, they're going to need somebody who would not be afraid to go deep. I mean, on each reception, a 4.6 average, that's not good. Even though Zach Miller did have 1 catch for 17 yards, and Benny Cunningham had a catch, even though he had 3 catches in the game, and his longest was 11 yards. And Jordan Howard had his longest receiving catch for 10 yards. So you got to go deep. Now let's go to Pittsburgh stats. Antonio Brown had 10 catches for 110 yards, which is 11 yards per catch average, with a touchdown catch, and his longest was 23. And Juju Smith-Schuster had only 2 receptions, but his longest reception was 25 yards. So that means if the Bears they have to start taking more chances of going deep, because this short ball game is not going to work against teams like the Green Bay Packers, who they happen to play next, or against any top-notch team that has one of the top-notch defenses. Because right now you have to really look at it. Like Mike Glennon is not really showing what he is capable of, and quite frankly, he should still be a second-string quarterback instead of a starter. Because if you look at what he did in preseason, obviously was the better quarterback, but due to experience, the Bears decided to start Mike Glennon instead of him. Now, would Mitch Trubisky be the Bears' savior in the passing game? Who knows? It's a possibility, but right now, the Bears are leaning on Mike Glennon to do just that. But right now, he has not done so. I mean, 15 to 22. It's good that the Bears got their running game going. As a team total, they ran the ball 38 times compared to 22 times when they passed. And 38 times is also almost equivalent to how many times the Bears ran the ball against Tampa Bay and Atlanta combined. So yes, They have a good running game. Jordan Howard is actually a good running back in the NFL. And he has, I mean, you have to have confidence in the running game. The Bears have to be confident in the running game, and they have to be confident in their passing game. Now, of course, with the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, of course, their defense is not the same like it used to be when Troy Polamalu and Ike Taylor were on the team. But nonetheless, I mean, and of course, James Harrison is nowhere near where he was years ago. Yes, their defense is not the same anymore. But at this rate, the Bears exploited that. And they took over. I mean, they got the running game going. They got the running game going at a very good time. Now, that's something that they need to do more. They have to have a balanced attack. Even though Mike Glennon was nowhere near at the top of his game. I mean, he did throw one interception, which shouldn't have happened. As a matter of fact, Mike Glennon is pretty lucky that he wasn't intercepted more than he was. Because there were some passes that easily should have been intercepted, but it just wasn't the case. So right now, Mike Glennon cannot live off of luck, because against other opposing defenses, he cannot be that lucky. Because if he's throwing bad passes like that, the next time around, it's more than likely a guarantee that his passes will be intercepted. So as long as he is the starter for the Chicago Bears, he is going to have to be a little more careful and a little more precise on his decisions on not only who to pass to, but what defenses to pass against. And he also needs to take more shots at going deep against short passes, but they can only work so long. Sometimes you have to go deep. Sometimes you have to. It doesn't matter who you're playing against. It could be against Richard Sherman, who is still one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL today. You got to take your chances against him, regardless of how great a cornerback he is. You still got to take your chances. Got to take your chances against defenses like cornerbacks like him. Or you have to, one thing with the Bears, they got to go deep. They got to learn how to start going deep more. If they happen to go deep, they're going to exploit more defenses like that. It's not that we don't have any deep ball threats, even though the stats may say otherwise. But nonetheless, I mean, they can get it done. But it's just about being confident. And Mike Glennon has to play with a little more confidence than he has been. Now, as I stated earlier, he didn't do bad against Atlanta, where he actually was not part of the problem. Bad hands were part of the problem as to why they ended up losing. But nonetheless, they got to get their passing game going. They got the running game going against Pittsburgh, and they have to do the same thing against the. They're going to eventually get it together, but it's just a matter of time. And they do have they have 3 more days off before they go to Lambeau Field. But nonetheless, they have to come with it, or don't come at all. And that's all it is that I have for the Chicago Bears. And right now, after this timeout, I'm going to talk about the Chicago Cubs coming through when it matters the most. As we come back on Chicagoland Sports Radio, where it's not just sports, it's a way of life. All right. April, appreciate it. Hamon, what's up? Kenya, Paul, Dory, B, Dominique, appreciate it. Roy, Mr. Carter, Shakita, Lindell, yeah, I'm trying. Shatira, my faithful supporter. Thank you. No surprise. Hey, sexy mama, what's going on? Rick, appreciate it. Fruity, a big surprise, but I'm glad you joined me. Appreciate you much for that. Oh man. Okay. All right. Tanika, what's going on? Appreciate you for tuning in. All right. All right. Almost that time. All right, hold on. It's almost that time, y'all. Sleepy. Thursday night from 6 to 9 p.m. Central. Found exclusively at Chicagolandsportsradio.com and the Illinois Media School's Facebook Live. How's it going? My name is Edgar Yvonne. I'm very grateful for all the knowledge I received at the Illinois Media School. My 15-year career in radio has been a dream come true. I'm a radio DJ. Hey, Joyce, what's going on? Yes, I'm just interning, trying to make my way on up. That's all I'm doing. But this is a sports, I don't know if you're into sports, but that's all I talk about, mainly Chicago sports. Internships and so much more. Don't just take my word for it. Set up your program in one of the 2 Chicagoland locations. Go to beonair.com. Chicago Sports to learn more. That's beonair.com/Chicago Sports. And we're back on Chicagolandsportsradio.com, where it's not just sports, it's a way of life. This is the Raphael Young Show. I am Raphael Young, and right now I'm going to talk about the Chicago Cubs coming through when it mattered most. Against the Milwaukee Brewers, and this is a good time for it because the Milwaukee Brewers are now 5.5 games behind Chicago for the NL Central. And I tell you right now, that 5-0 victory against the Milwaukee Brewers on yesterday was very impressive. And as we talk about what they did against the Milwaukee Brewers, Jose Quintana was acquired from the Chicago White Sox to pitch in big games. And boy, did he come through when it mattered most. Jose Quintana pitched a complete game shutout, only giving up 3 hits and striking out 10 and only walking 1, as the Chicago Cubs defeated the Milwaukee Brewers 5-0. And that was very, very timely pitching by Jose Quintana when it mattered most. And also in the game, in that game, Anthony Rizzo came through when it mattered most as well. But before I get to him, Chris Bryant had an RBI double in the top of the 4th. And then Brian Zorbis hit a 2-run homer, scoring Willie Contreras in the top of the 7th. And then Anthony Rizzo had an RBI double to center in the top of the 8th, giving them 2 more big insurance runs in that game. Not that they really needed it, but the more the better. 3 since being acquired from the Chicago White Sox. And the pitching that he has been coming up with lately couldn't have come at a much better time, especially with the Milwaukee Brewers trying to come up and win the NL Central, not to mention make the playoffs. So this could actually be a confidence booster for the Chicago Cubs as the playoffs are near. They needed this, especially against Central Division rivals like the Milwaukee Brewers. This was a series they needed. Now, winning 2, it was something that I was not really expecting. But winning 3 out of 4, you can't go wrong with that. Can't go wrong with that at all. Right now, I mean, Javi Baez actually had the day off, but he was in the game for defensive purposes in the 9th inning. But nonetheless, they came on. So right now, the NL Central title is very, very, very near for the Chicago Cubs. And right now, when they had acquired Jose Quintana, to be honest with you, I was a little surprised that the Chicago White Sox ended up giving him up. But it actually was a blessing in disguise for the Chicago Cubs. And at that time, I didn't see it that way. But now he has shown as to why the Chicago Cubs have acquired him in the first place, pitching in big games. And yes, this was his 2nd big league shutout. And right now, that actually put a damage to the playoff hopes for the Milwaukee Brewers. And right now, as we look at the standings, yes, the Chicago Cubs are now 5.5 games behind the Milwaukee Brewers. But the next team that is trying to chase them is the St. Louis Cardinals. So right now, you have to really look at it where could it be the Chicago, would it be the Milwaukee Brewers or the St. Louis Cardinals giving chase? But as long as the Cubs keep winning games the way they have been winning, then the NL Central will be theirs. So right now, because right now, the Washington Nationals have clinched the playoff spot, the Los Angeles Dodgers have clinched the playoff spot, and the Arizona Diamondbacks have clinched the playoff spot. The only thing left now is the Chicago Cubs doing the same thing. And right now, will they do it? I'm very confident that they will, as long as they keep playing good baseball like they have been since the All-Star break. And speaking of since the All-Star break, before the All-Star break, they had me scared. I couldn't tell you if the Chicago Cubs were coming or going before the All-Star break, but after the All-Star break, they have turned it around. They have turned it around not only in the second half, but they also turned it around against teams they really need to turn it around against. And if I might add, when they got swept at home by the Milwaukee Brewers early on, it kind of had me wondering, But they redeemed themselves big time when they came to Milwaukee and took 3 or 4. And in addition to that, they also swept the St. Louis Cardinals in the process. Who would have ever thought that being possible? But they made it happen. So nonetheless, the only bad part of when they lost a painful one Saturday in 10 innings against the Milwaukee Brewers, when Travis Shaw hit a game-winning 2-run homer with 1 out in the bottom of the 10th against all-star closer Wade Davis. That was painful. That was extremely painful. But the Chicago Cubs more than made up for it when they shut them out 5-0 yesterday. So that game was big. Just imagine if Wade Davis would not have given up that 2-run homer against, to Travis Shaw against the Milwaukee Bucks, it would have been a 4-game sweep. But nonetheless, hey, 3 out of 4 ain't bad either. So this is actually a big confidence booster for the Chicago Cubs at a crunch time in the season like this. Because if you know, the St. Louis Cardinals and the Milwaukee Brewers are trying to give chase. But right now, with the Cubs' confidence meter going off the charts, I guess you could pretty much say it's safe to say that if they keep playing the way they've been playing, and there are 7 games left. There are 7 games left, and right now they have to really come with it. It ain't no time for playing. Ain't no time for horseplay. It ain't no time to be caught lacking. Because these 7 games that they have left are crucial. Yes, they have a 4-game series on the road against the St. Louis Cardinals, and they have a 3-game series against the Cincinnati Reds. Now, the Chicago Cubs cannot take the Cincinnati Reds lightly, even though they're one of the worst teams in Major League Baseball. They cannot be taken lightly by any means, because painful losses against bad teams will haunt any team, not just in Major League Baseball, but it will haunt teams in professional sports overall. And that's something that the Chicago Cubs do not need to do at this point in time. Even if they officially clinch the NL Central, they still have to come out and play hard every day like the season is on the line. Because once they start slacking, it's not going to be a pretty picture come playoff time. So right now, these games, every game will be critical, especially with the St. Louis Cardinals trying to gain ground, as well as the Milwaukee Brewers trying to gain ground. So right now, as long as their pitching is on point and their timely hitting is on point, as well as playing solid defense, then it'll be safe to say that the Chicago Cubs will have the NL Central wrapped up, and also their 2nd consecutive playoff appearance. Will they make it all the way? Only thing I can tell you to do is stay tuned and find out, because this is a good time for them to come through, and they have been coming through when it mattered most. So right now, Chicago Cubs, they gotta step it up. At 12:30, I'm Raphael Young with your Chicagoland Sports Radio.com update, brought to you by the Illinois Media School. For more information on careers in broadcasting, go to beonair.com. The Chicago Cubs will square off against the St. Louis Cardinals on the road today. John Lester will start for the Cubs, while Luke Weaver will start for St. Louis. Game time is 7:15 p.m., and you can watch the game on Comcast Sportsnet. The Chicago White Sox will square off against the Los Angeles Angels at Guaranteed Rate Field. James Shields will start for the White Sox, while Ricky Nolasco will start for Los Angeles. Game time is at 7 p.m., and you can watch the game on Comcast Sportsnet Plus. The Chicago Bears' next game will be Thursday at Lambeau Field against the NFC North rival Green Bay Packers. Game time is 7:25 p.m. and you can watch that game on CBS. This update is also brought to you by IIT Men's Soccer. The next home game broadcast will be September 29th when they take on Robert Morris at 7 p.m. For tickets, visit IllinoisTechAthletics.com. I'm Raphael Young, and you're listening to Chicagoland Sports Radio. It's not just sports, it's a way of life. And right now, today is a very sad day for the Miami Marlins. And the reason why it is a sad day for the Miami Marlins is simply because on this day, the Miami Marlins' life, as well as Major League Baseball, changed forever when Miami Marlins pitcher Jose Fernandez was sadly killed. And it was so sad because he was definitely a pitcher that was on his way to the top. And that was just something that was, I'm still saddened by it. You know, he was tragically killed in a boating accident, not off of Miami Beach at roughly 3 a.m. on this day. And unfortunately, 2 other passengers, Emilio Jesus Macias and Eduardo Rivera, were also killed in the boating accident. And right now it is just so sad because this guy, Jose Fernandez, was already a Rookie of the Year award winner, made 2 All-Star appearances, and he was actually looking forward to a 3rd All-Star game this year. But unfortunately, the unthinkable happened on this day in 2016. And that's something that, I'm just hoping that they are moving forward with. I know it's not going to be easy because he definitely was one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball. And he also had a knack for connecting with children, which actually was one of his greatest gifts. And yes, the people who had spent time around him at the ballpark each day, they can actually recall the smiles he elicited over the dugout roof and the buzz he generated when he came out for pre-game stretching. I mean, there will never, ever be another Jose Fernandez, as he will truly and forever be missed. And right now, the Miami Marlins are, if I'm not mistaken, but nonetheless, as a matter of fact, today they are playing against, as a matter of fact, they are in Colorado against the Colorado Rockies. And right now, my thoughts and prayers continue to go out to the family of Jose Fernandez, the Miami Marlins organization, and as well as all of Major League Baseball together, as they still are grieving a huge, untimely loss. So my prayers once again go out to the family of Jose Fernandez. I hope and pray that they find peace on this day of the 1-year anniversary of his untimely passing. And after this timeout, we're going to talk about the Chicago White Sox playing the spoilers as we come back on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com, where it's not just sports, it's a way of life. Wayne, appreciate you for tuning in. Shonda, your Packers almost blew it, but I think that Cincinnati should have known better than to give Aaron Rodgers that much time. When the game was on the line, they should have known better. But thank you for tuning in. Anthony, appreciate it. Dominique, my fellow church member, appreciate it. Charlotte, thank you. Letitia, what a big surprise. Appreciate it. Tay, the sexy mama, appreciate it. Latrina, appreciate it, twin. Samara, appreciate it. Hambone, I gave you a shout out. I already know who you are, man. You all good with me. Appreciate all y'all for tuning in. Who's it? Corey, appreciate it. All right. Appreciate y'all much for tuning in. Okay, come on. All right. Oh, oops.
Find out how the Chicago Bears did against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Where are there more injuries to Bears? Find out.
All right. Okay. About to get ready in a few more seconds. Almost time, y'all. All right. And we're back on Chicagoland where it's not just sports, it is a way of life. This is the Raphael Young Show. I am Raphael Young. And finally, I'm going to talk about the Chicago White Sox playing the spoilers. Well, the Chicago White Sox actually took 3 or 4. And who would have ever imagined the Kansas City Royals falling the way they did? I mean, at one point, they were actually in hunt for the American League Central, but unfortunately, they have been sliding since. Even though they ended up losing 2 of 3 against the Houston Astros, I'm talking about the Chicago White Sox, that is. They made up for it by taking They made up by taking 2 of 3 against Kansas City, as they won 8-1. Now, we all know that the Chicago White Sox have been eliminated from playoff contention. But that doesn't mean they can't finish the season strong. And yes, they are still in rebuilding mode. But nonetheless, let's look at the stats for yesterday's game. Lucas Giolito is coming through like the White Sox said he would. He pitched 7 strong innings, gave up 5 hits, only gave up a run, even though it was a home run. But he did strike out 5 and did not walk anybody. And, of course, Rookie of the Year candidate, Tim Anderson, was 2 of 4 in the game yesterday. And in addition to that, one thing with the White Sox, I was still sad to see Melky Cabrera go, but nonetheless, their future does look bright. I mean, it would be nice if they had a better record than 63 and 92, but they're working out the kinks as the season is coming to a close. That if they can finish out the season strong, I'm not expecting the White Sox to win all their games coming up. It would be nice, but I just don't see that happening. But nonetheless, if they can win at least, maybe, I would say, at least 4 games out of the remaining 7 that they have, 4 against the LA Angels and 3 against the Cleveland Indians, then this would actually boost their confidence going into next season. And one thing I can simply say is their future does look bright. Despite, I mean, don't let the bad record fool you. Their future is bright. And sometimes you have to go through a little bit of adversity in order to come through. Look at what happened with the Chicago Cubs when Tom Ricketts became general manager. I mean, when he became the owner of the Chicago Cubs. He simply said that he would do whatever it takes for the Cubs to win a World Series. And he did just that. Now the White Sox, I know it's going to be a tough time. It's going to be a tough time for them to actually get to where they need to be. But taking 2 of 3 against Kansas City was not bad at all. And like I said, they have 7 games left. LA Angels playoff hopes are actually slim. The White Sox can play the spoiler as long as they play hard and as long as they continue to play with enthusiasm. Then they're going to finish off the season strong if they can come up with timely hits. Their pitching comes through when it matters most, and their defense comes through when it matters most. Because with the LA Angels, they actually their playoff hopes, they don't have a chance at making the playoffs at all, actually. But nonetheless, if you really want to look at it, I mean, let's say this: Will they make the playoffs? I don't know. Will the White Sox make noise next year? They should. But who knows? I mean, anything is possible. And I've seen some things where the unexpected had happened. And all of a sudden, it took a turn for the worse. So, with the White Sox season nearly coming to an end, they can still finish the season strong. How will they finish the season strong? That remains a mystery. But if they can, they can get it done. But it's just a matter of team effort. Because one thing I can tell you for sure is that when the season is all said and done, once the playoffs start, I mean, it's pretty much starting all over again. Well, this time you have to come hard or don't come at all. Now it was kind of, it's a little saddening to say that the White Sox will not be a part of the postseason. But like I said early on, the future is bright. I mean, with Tim Anderson leading he's actually one of the candidates for Rookie of the Year. Avisel Garcia is the team leader in batting average. He's hitting .331 for the season. Jose Abreu. But nonetheless, and also Avisel Garcia is also leader in on base percentage, which is interesting. But nonetheless, now as far as the pitching is concerned, let's take a look at the White Sox pitching. Now, the pitching needs to step it up. Miguel Gonzalez has more wins this season for the White Sox. And before he was traded, Jose Quintana was actually the team leader in strikeouts. But nonetheless, they're going to get it together. I have a good feeling that they're going to get it together. Will they get it together this year? Will they get it together next year? I'm hoping that they will win. But nonetheless, they can actually get it done. They can actually get it done. And with Lucas Giolito coming through, his future with the White Sox, if he's still with them for next season, looks bright. And one thing I can simply say is that in the last 30 games, including yesterday, Tim Anderson has hit .381. Avisel Garcia hit .379. And Omar Narvaez is hitting .341. Not of those now for the last 30, but still nonetheless, his batting average in the last 30 has been pretty good. But it's all about how bad they want it. And yes, they have a very tough 7 games coming up. Playing against the LA Angels and the Cleveland Indians. Who would have ever imagined the Chicago White Sox concluding their season against their Central Division rivals, the Cleveland Indians? That was something that they have a big history against. And right now, the Cleveland Indians are trying to shake off their World Series painful gaffe against the Chicago Cubs. But nonetheless, one thing I can tell you is that if you are going to the White Sox game, their last games will be today going into Thursday against the LA Angels. Wednesday is $1 hot dog Wednesday. And Thursday is free t-shirt Thursday. So if you want to see the Chicago White Sox for the last time at Guaranteed Rate Field, you can purchase tickets today, tomorrow, Wednesday, or Thursday. It's your choice. It's your choice. But right now, like I said, their future definitely looks bright. Now, it would be nice to have Carson Fulmer back. We don't know if he'll be back or not. But let's look at the players they lost. Lurie Garcia. Well, he actually he was placed on a 10-day disabled list, but right now it's a possibility he could return. And I think one of the most painful losses of the season was pitcher Nate Jones, when he was out for the season, when he had season-ending injury to have nerve reposition in his right elbow on July 11th. That's painful. And Jake Petricka, who was also placed on the 10-day disabled list on September 7th, could actually be back. We don't know. Pitcher Zach Putnam was also lost for the season when he had Tommy John surgery June 23rd. But he probably won't be back until June of 2018. And unfortunately, Carlos Rodon will not be pitching anymore this season due to left shoulder inflammation. So he will be back next season. And like I said, despite once they come back, the White Sox will be a force to be reckoned with. And their future definitely looks bright despite what the record says this year. There's always next year. And I'm just hoping that the White Sox will come through like they had come through before. It's been since 2005 since they last won the World Series. I'm not expecting that to happen next year or anytime too soon. But they could surprise us. Who knows? So my time is almost up. I want to give a special thanks to Evan McLean, who is director of Chicagoland Sports Radio, for giving me the opportunity to do this. This is something I definitely don't take lightly, and this is something that I don't take for granted. And I also want to thank the entire Illinois. I want to thank all my listeners for listening in and all my Facebook viewers for tuning in live. On behalf of Evan McLean and the entire Chicagoland Sports Radio.com, as well as all of Illinois Media School, this is Raphael Young about to sign out, and you are listening to Chicagoland Sports Radio.com, where is this not just sports, it's a way of life. Talk to you next Monday in 143 hours. Peace!